Good evening. So happy you are tuning in to Good News on Entertainment tonight. I'm Carley Boyette. A little later, we're going to look at a perfect movie to release in theaters just in time for Independence Day called Something to Stand For. And I also checked back in with musician Zach Williams about his latest book, Rescue Story. And he's got a new children's book he also has coming out this fall as well. But first tonight, I want to feature an event that has traveled all over the country for the last several years. It's called Life Surge. No matter the city, they always have popular guest speakers that are not only faith-filled, but are really leading a global movement to help people live their lives God's way. The most recent Life Surge event is coming soon to Tampa on June 29th. Duck Dynasty's Willie Robertson will be one of the guest speakers, along with Tim Tebow and Priscilla Shirer. And that's just naming a few. I had a chance to talk again with Willie about not only these Life Surge events, but his new book out as well.
Oh, Willie, always good to get some time with you. How are you doing today? I know you're
I'm good.
busy.
Fantastic. Yeah, I've been really busy. I just caught a big mess of fish, so I'm excited.
I'm literally signing off now, and my family's going out on the lake. So yeah,
Really?
that's my next appointment. So
So I
we're
went
going
this
bass
morning.
fishing.
Yeah, I've got a bucket full of fish that I got to go clean when we're done.
Hopefully that's my agenda later today as
Very
well.
good.
Oh, well, hey, let's talk about this. Let's start with the Life Surge event. I have not been to one of these yet, so I'm just so interested because obviously they've been around for several years. You've been a part of them now for so long. For someone who hasn't gone yet, maybe they're getting ready to go. How do you best explain? Like, is it just I've seen the promos, and I mean, is it just business owners? I mean, who's the kind of target audience for these?
Yeah, I think it's people who are interested in some way in business and growing, um, their wealth and money and how to be smart about using money. I've been there since the beginning. I was at the first one years ago in Tampa. It was actually while I was filming The Masked Singer. I'll never forget it. Like I was so trying to make sure I learned my songs, and then I had to go speak at some Christian business event. I wasn't even sure what it was, and who would have thought that these many years later I'm still doing them, and really fun, very educational with a mix of spirituality. I mean, there's good spiritual lessons in it as well as just a lot of knowledge. I've learned so much about real estate and flipping houses and the market, and they just bring in a lot of smart people who know that stuff with a mix of people that you may have heard of. There's been several of us that have come in and out and spoken. It's just a full day, and you learn a lot, and I think you get encouraged, and yeah, hopefully you sign up, and then they do ongoing classes and coaching and just all this stuff. And I think a lot of people, at first, it's like, oh, should we be talking about money? But
I was just going to say that sometimes it can be so sensitive,
oh,
such a
for
sensitive
sure.
topic, especially in the Christian faith-based community as
I
well. I
know
mean,
we're so scared of that, and I get that. But as someone who grew up poor like myself, and then obviously I have more now, and if you're not smart with it, you can lose it. You can worry to death about it. You can, it's just there's a lot of things and there's a lot of mention of that in the Bible. I remember going, yeah, I was going to the New Testament one time, and I was like, I'm fixing to just totally study this out, and so that and show everyone how there's nothing in there about money. And then I realized it was mentioned a whole lot, and I was like, wow, it is mentioned a lot. And so I think you can learn a lot about yourself and other people when you see how they deal with money. And I just think there's no sense in Christians just being dumb and not properly using that and growing it so that they can do other things, not just for yourself for sure, but so that you can help other people. And I think the smarter we are, it's just I think education is it's not a bad thing. It's a good thing.
yeah. You mentioned some of the names, Tim Tebow, Priscilla Shirer. That's going to be at the Tampa event, but of course there's other ones as well. I'd imagine that's got to be when you get so many people that have such amazing testimonies together. Has that been kind of, pretty inspiring for you as well, just to kind of see what God is doing in these spaces with all these other people as well?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I forgot we were going back to Tampa, which is where the first one was, that I was at. Yeah, I remember Corey, my wife, not being sure about it. She was like, "Willie, I'm not sure about this." And then once Priscilla Shire signed on, she was like, "Oh, this is of God," you know. And I was like, "Wait a minute, I wasn't enough." And so it took Priscilla. Once Priscilla said it was okay, then it became okay. I have been inspired. Yeah, Tim and I have been doing this pretty much the whole time, and so we speak at a lot of events together. Priscilla's just amazing. She just brings it every time. It's just, you can just sit and listen and absorb what God has shown her, and how she can communicate that is incredible. Yeah, we've had Sadie out. I've had my parents out. We've had all sorts of people. Yeah, I've met so many, John Maxwell. There's been so many people I wanted to meet, and then I end up getting to sit and listen to them there. Ed Millette's great. Just a lot of speakers. Nick Vujicic, we've been doing these pretty much the whole time. So he and I have been fast friends and brothers in arms, and it's just, yeah, it's just some great people to learn from. And I think everything I learned about business certainly wasn't my degree. Everything I learned from other people, just hanging around people and listening to people. And that's how I was able to kind of achieve the success, was learning from other people, learning from their mistakes, learning what they did right. And I think this is just a great venue for that, where we can share not just all the good stuff, but also where we screwed up, messed up, and did that. And mine's kind of fun. It's an all day event. So I definitely kind of bring the comedy. They mine's the comedy hour when I show up. So
Oh, I love it. Well, this is a good segue to the book now. I'm so excited to talk to you. We've had a chance to talk about this several times, whether it's a movie. I know you and Corey were involved in the stage production in Texas, I believe is where it was. Just of different ways that we can share the gospel, have these gospel conversations. And this book really dives into helping people be confident in that, which I love. And there is a confidence, but everybody thinks they're not good enough to share. Not everybody. I would say a majority of people think
a lot of
they're
people,
not good
sure,
enough to share the gospel.
Yeah, Gospeller's the name of it. Looks like gospel with an ER. That's a real word that my wife found when I was writing the book about kind of how to share your faith and how to get started. And kind of the genesis of it was I was teaching a Bible class at church, and just about this subject. And so I was able to hear from a lot of people. And there's a lot of things that people disqualify themselves. I don't know the Bible well enough. I don't know where to start. That's where I got a lot of them. Or I've been so bad, I don't know that I can share with anybody else. Or they just kind of believe the lie that you should just keep that to yourself. That's your personal thing, and we don't want to hear about that. And so I just kind of wanted to knock down those walls, and kind of made the argument that I think we should all share our faith. It's not just for us, it's for other people. Jesus says, I came to seek and save what was lost. And so he told us that's why he came. And so for us, I believe, to share that. And so, yeah, just tell a bunch of stories about most stories are the ones that work. Some are ones that didn't. And then I go through especially the New Testament, and I just go through those encounters that these new believers had, and what did they say? What was the response? And so we can get a biblical kind of tie into that. And so what I try to do with people is just tie them into the word, and then let them take it from there. And I'm not judging them, and I'm not, but I do show that I care about them. And I think it starts about caring about people. John chapter 4, when Jesus meets the woman at the well, he just I think just by talking to her, he showed that he cared about her, and found out about her story. And then she ends up going and telling her whole village about it. And by the way, that conversation started with Jesus said, "Can I get a drink of water?" So if you can ask for a drink of water, then you can share the gospel with someone. That's how easy it can be.
Well, and I actually heard this on the podcast you did with Sadie, not too, and it was like a light bulb for me. I loved it. And this is how my crazy brain works too. I was just thinking of you. You were talking about how you had heard the story. I think it was a football player. Someone had a heart attack recently, and it was like the surgeon or whatever who came in later. And once he got to the hospital, obviously got the credit for saving his life. But it was the EMTs, someone, and that's so true. I think so many of us, in drawing that parallel to the church, and that we sometimes just leave it up to the pastors and say, well, that's their
Yeah,
job,
right.
To share the gospel and really to
Right.
drill down.
That's what we pay them to do, right? Yeah, I think we feel like we pay those people to do stuff that we don't want to do. So they almost become like spiritual concierge, they're supposed to go see the sick and preach the gospel and do all these things. And I think it's on us. And I think, there are a lot of people who can foster into that. People can bring people, but at some point somebody needs to share with someone the gospel, because oftentimes, even if you go to church, you don't necessarily hear the gospel. You hear a sermon about something, and then and we're hoping we may get them there to the church building, and maybe they'll by osmosis feel it or see it or understand it. And I think, the tagline of this is turning darkness to light, one conversation at a time. So it's what kind of conversations can we have? Honestly, most of them outside the church. I don't normally have a conversation while church is going on. So these are conversations that we have at work. These are conversations we have in our homes, with our children, with our family, with people that we know, and sometimes strangers, sometimes even strangers that we come in contact with. And so, yeah, I try to teach about how to listen and things to listen for, and just listen. You'll hear something about, there you go. And I can key in on that. And a story just happened like a couple of weeks ago. I was in the Atlanta airport, and a guy comes up and says, "I know who you are, and I know about your family. Thank you for what you're doing." He goes, I'm not living exactly how I should live. And I just stopped him. I said, "Now, why would you say that to me? You just met me." But that was a clue, right? He was saying, "I'm not living." And I said, "Well, have a seat. Let's talk about what you just said and why you feel that way." We got into his story. Heard about how he grew up and the church he went to, and so we had a conversation right there. And so, you just plant those seeds, and I don't know, we keep throwing out seeds, and we see which ones grow and take off, and planting that gospel.
And I'll end on this. I think if anyone is eager, maybe they're scared, but they're wanting to have more gospel conversations. I've always been amazed for when you ask God to put people in your path. If we make that a priority of saying, God, put someone in my path today, or who is it that you want me to share with? I mean, it's pretty remarkable what can happen when you seek that and ask for that.
It really is. And they're probably already there. You're not looking at it. Mm-hmm. You're not looking the right way, because you'd be amazed to just be like, oh yeah. And I've missed a lot of opportunities as well. And so
we all have.
Yeah. And I look back on, oh man, I think that guy, and so, but I
God is sovereign.
I want to be prepared, right? I want to be prepared to when I have those conversations, to at least be able to know what to say to the best of my ability. And I think this book can help.
Now, unfortunately, the Life Surge Tampa event is sold out for June 29th, but they are offering an on-site simulcast experience. And after Tampa, there will be events in Cincinnati, Chicago, and Charlotte in the coming weeks as well. That's just naming a few of the cities. Just go to lifesurge.com for more info. And for Willie's book, you can find it where most books are sold, including Amazon and Walmart.com. Okay, now to another book by Grammy Award-winning musician Zach Williams, who has an absolutely amazing testimony. After growing up in a faith-filled home as a child, Zach admits that he turned from his faith in his young adult life and would eventually turn to drugs, alcohol, and a life of rock and roll music that would lead him down a path where he felt very far from God's love. But as we know, that's never the case. He was indeed rescued by our Savior and is now leading a life of music completely surrendered to God. His book, Rescue Story, details those life events and can be such an incredible encouragement to any of you watching that may be praying for your own prodigal.
Oh, Zach, I always love when I can steal some time with you. Good to see you.
How you doing?
So much to talk about. First, congratulations. At the time of our conversation here, you've recently just won the K-Love Award for Rescue Story. And man, we've always known, fans of yours have always known what a huge blessing your testimony has been. But now that it's actually written on paper and so many now have read it and you're hearing the responses, tell me about kind of that for you, what that means of now really hearing a lot of the responses.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing to me, to see how many people have connected with my story. But the thing is I think the reason why people connect with it is because so many of us, have that same story or a similar story. I've met so many people over the years, and that was really the biggest reason for this book was, I meet a lot of folks, after shows and before the concerts that are always like, you should write a book, with your story. I have a grandson or I have a son or a daughter that's going through this, and I feel like if they could read your story and see what God's done in your life, it could help them. And so that was really my prayer when I wrote it. Me and my wife were like, let's talk about some of the things in our life that we've never shared publicly, and it was always our prayer that people would find hope in, the pages of this book, and that, could see that if God can do it for somebody like us, that he can do it for anybody. And so, yeah, I was really surprised, because there were a lot of good books in the K-Love, category. And so whenever I found out I won, I was kind of shocked.
Oh, well, I'm not shocked because, again, it's such a powerful story, powerful testimony. I feel like it could even be a movie. Like there's something there. I'm so excited about what's happening in the
There's
faith.
definitely been some talk. Yeah, there's definitely been some talk over the last few years about a possible movie down the road. It'd be nice, I think the book serves as a pretty good kind of blueprint for how a movie could be. It'd be neat, yeah.
And again, I just want to have you, while we're talking here for a few minutes, to encourage, because again, you grew up as a pastor's kid. My prayer is as we're trying to be good role models and taking the kids to church, you can never save your kids, though, from their own personal faith journey and their own testimony. As much as we want to take hold of that and protect them from everything, you can't do that. And you were an adult before you finally surrendered. And I think that's why people love this so much. It's never too late.
No, it's not, and I think that's the thing. I grew up in church. I grew up a lot, seeing people go to the front, and I felt like I needed to go to the front every Sunday. I didn't understand salvation. I didn't understand, I just hadn't, for one, I hadn't lived. I had only gone to church and heard what the pastor said that I needed to hear. And I never had gone and sought it out for myself. And so, I thought at 9, 10 years old, I got saved at church camp. And then as I grew and got older, I realized there was nothing in my life that represented a walk with Christ. And so I think living, the life that I lived for a number of years, allowed me to even understand God's grace and his mercy on my life even more. And so I'm not saying go out and live the life that I live, but I'm saying, it doesn't matter how you start the race, it's how you finish it. And so that's the beauty of what Jesus did for us. And so, I would say if there's anybody out there that's questioning it, it's the best decision that I've ever made in my life.
Amen. Hey, I can't help but think too, part of, your testimony is you were sitting on a bus, you heard Big Daddy Weave's song, Redeemed, that really spoke to you. Yeah. So I'm picturing you on this tour bus, and then you have this kid's book that's coming out. Not a tour bus, it's a school bus.
Yeah. It's called A Little More Like Jesus. It comes out, I think, in August, and it's kind of aimed at the 4 to 8 year old kind of crowd. But I just remember growing up as a kid in church and Sunday school class and the fruits of the Spirit. And this book is kind of based off the fruits of the Spirit. It kind of goes along with my song "Less Like Me," and it's just really it's a tool to help children kind of understand how to deal with the emotions that they have, and to be a little more like Jesus. And so it's going to be fun. I'm excited. It was the first time I've ever seen myself as a cartoon, so it's pretty cool.
I love it. You're driving the bus.
I'm the bus. So.
Speaking of that, because I do think it is such an interesting parallel that here you grew up in church, you heard all the right things, and yet it didn't click for you fully until you were an adult. But it's still so important. That doesn't mean, that we give up,
No.
Still, teaching these incredibly important life lessons and skills through through a biblical worldview.
Yeah, no, I definitely think, I grew up kind of with this idea of who I thought God was. I don't know. I wasn't really raised that way. It was just kind of in my mind. I thought God just sat on his throne all day, with his arms crossed, shaking his head at everything that I did wrong, but it didn't really understand. He knew me before I had a hair on my head. He knew the things I would struggle with, what I would go through. So he went to the cross for me, and he sees something in me that I'll never see in myself. And he sees that in everybody, And so, yeah, you're never too late. So.
Hey, before I let you go here, new music with Dolly again, which is so exciting to see her still jump on board. And I think, someone like me that's a big fan of country music, and why I love your music so much, because it kind of breaks the barrier of what traditional Christian sound may have been over the years. It's just so exciting to see the two kind of overlap, and it must be fun as an artist as well.
It is, and she's super sweet. This was kind of unexpected, kind of one of those things. I never expected to do a second song with Dolly, but we were working on her Christmas special in Dollywood a couple of years ago, and we had some time in between filming, and we were sitting backstage talking, and she asked me what I was working on, and I said, I've got a record coming out called 100 Highways, and I said, there's a song on it that's really special to me and kind of really sums up, my journey to where I'm at today. And so I played it for her, and we were sitting backstage, and she started humming along to it and singing these little harmony parts, and I thought it was pretty cool. And by the time the song was over, she was wiping tears out of her eyes, and she said, Zach, I think that's beautiful. She said, why didn't you ask me to sing on that one? And I said, okay, well, do you want to sing on it? So we ended up putting this out. Yeah, she's awesome.
Yeah, well, you're awesome. We're so excited about what you were doing in this space, how you're sharing your story through music, again, through this book. I'm hoping maybe eventually a movie. We'll have to see what may come.
Be really cool. Yeah.
Yep. Well, safe travels to you. I know you have a lot of tour dates still on the schedule with good friends of yours and other great music artists along the way. And there's also news on a cruise that I'll make sure and tell people about as well.
Absolutely.
Because, again, so much good stuff.
I think we announced that in a week or so. So
yeah.
It'll be fun.
By the way, that cruise he just mentioned is going to Alaska in the summer of 2025. Go to his website, ZachWilliamsMusic.com, for info on that cruise, his book, and you can pre-order his children's book on Amazon. Okay, last but certainly not least tonight, Something to Stand For, which hits theaters June 27th. You may recognize Mike Rowe. He is rightfully nicknamed America's favorite storyteller. Drawing from his extremely popular podcast, The Way I Heard It, the film is a cinematic journey to our nation's capital to tell untold stories of American heroes. Before I chat with the director of this film, take a look at Something to Stand For.
My name's Mike Rowe, and this is Something to Stand For. A film that celebrates a few extraordinary Americans who risked everything to build the nation we call home. Americans who gave us something to fight for, something to be grateful for. And today, all these years later, something to stand for. I thought I'd take a trip to our nation's capital, not too far from where I grew up, to reacquaint myself with the memorials and monuments built to honor the people in this film. In other words, it's a field trip. And I'm glad you're along for the ride. Assuming the old truck makes it. It's going to be fine.
What a fantastic film this is, and I love that it's in theaters.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me, and we're really excited. It releases the week before the 4th of July, June 27th, and it'll be in theaters to July 4th. So we really want to get the word out to go into the theaters and celebrate America, celebrate what it means to be an American.
So a couple thoughts that I have. One, I think this is great timing, not only for July 4th, but I think you have so many family vacations going on right now. And if you're like me, where you have, I have an 11-year-old, 10-year-old, and 4-year-old, I'm like, man, I'm just not ready. Like they could go to DC, but I just feel like if you can't get it done this summer, this is the perfect film to kind of feel like you've gone on this vacation, to see all these monuments, hear all these fascinating stories.
Yeah. So, it is a road trip to DC, but not in a traditional way. Mike,
thank you for that.
Yeah. I mean, some people love documentaries and some people don't. And this is not for the people that love documentaries. This is for the people that love great storytelling, that love great movies, and it's really for the whole family. And we wanted to just take our audience to a journey to our nation's capital, but then also with blockbuster cinematic reenactments kind of tell the story of sacrifice, hope, heroism, and pivotal moments that have really shaped the American story. And this movie, I think, not only takes you to DC, but it gives you an appreciation and a love for our country in a way that I don't think any other film really does.
Well, and what I appreciate about it, and it's funny, Mike actually addresses this. I'm assuming it'll be ahead of the movie when it's in theaters too. I, of course, got a sneak peek, but it's not meant to be controversial. And unfortunately, I feel like when you hear anything about politics these days, that's your first inclination is
Yeah.
that, oh, it's trying to push one side or there's always an agenda. And you
Mhm.
guys did a really good job. There's not I couldn't really pick up on an agenda. It's just
No.
telling good American stories in a
Well,
really compelling way, which is so needed.
I know. And I think in today's world, I feel like everything can be spun politically, right? Like you can take Cheerios and spin it politically somehow. I don't know if you if people have tried, but I'm sure that they can. What we wanted to do is we wanted to take these stories and just show off what makes America great. We wanted to show off the people and the heroes that I think sometimes get forgotten.
And I'm all about what we do here, is really making sure that we highlight family-friendly entertainment and making sure that you can feel good about what you're seeing and what you're letting your kids see. And this must be, feel really good. You're a dad, like you
Yeah.
understand the importance of that. So to have something where the whole family can go
Yeah.
and not be worried about.
Yeah, it's very important. It's hard to find quality. I won't call it safe because safe tends to make it vanilla. I don't think it's a safe film. I mean, we have Marines and we have some pretty dramatic, big blockbuster stories in our film, but it's definitely a personal movie. I believe that there's still something worth standing for, and those are the values and the things that I want to communicate and impart into my son. That I don't want to show him movies or entertainment that's going to put him on a path towards destruction or making decisions that are that are non-biblical. I think this movie, it's not really a faith film, it's a patriotic movie, but it has the values and the virtues that great men and great women of our country stood on. And I think those values and virtues, they're timeless, right? They're things that go beyond the political spin, just kind of like what we were talking about earlier. But they're the ideals that men and women have held on to for centuries. So this movie's it's a love letter to America, but it's also hopefully a letter to future generations that, hey, these are the values worth standing for. And
Something to stand for. Movie is where you can find ticket info. And remember, June 27th is the big day. It hits theaters. I hope you enjoyed tonight's show. I'm Carley Boyette, and I look forward to seeing you next week right here on your Christian television network.